How do we do this?
Every time.
Who's,
Every goddamn time. It's this guy's.
It's yours?
It's me. Yeah, it's definitely me.
You start.
I start?
Yeah, sure.
I'm Darren McCarthy.
I'm Dan Fury.
And I'm Martin Wallace. And this is The Fundamentals.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Welcome.
You pointed to yourself. I thought you were going to say your name again.
Right. I just wanted to make sure you guys
I'm
knew
Martin
that I was
Wallace,
here.
and this is
Martin Wallace.
Martin Wallace. And you are?
Hi.
We just keep going around and around. Yeah.
So glad you could join us for our fireside chat.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
This week we're talking about Vlad the Impaler.
go. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you did, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I hope that's what you were looking up.
Yeah. Good.
Is it Vlad or is it Vlad?
It's Vlad here in the new country.
Sure.
Definitely was probably more Vlad.
Vlad.
So who the hell?
Yeah,
First of all, why did you pick this?
Spesh.
Spesh.
Yeah, TSPESCH. Spesh.
Spesh.
I have a fascination with horrible historic bastards.
You got your Carl Tanzlers.
Mm-hmm.
You get
Yeah,
your
that was me
Vlads.
too. Yeah. Your Vlads.
You got your Scientologists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
No.
Everybody loves a good piece of shit.
Yeah. He was, let's not hide it. He was terrible.
He's a bad person.
It sounds
Yeah.
like it.
He,
To be known as the Impaler.
Mm-hmm. He left between 50,000 and 100,000 people dead within a 6-year reign.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
In a very small country.
Just anyone and everyone?
Yeah.
You get impaled. And you get impaled.
No,
It
yeah.
wasn't just impalings, but it was mostly impalings.
And this is a time.
So brutal.
I mean, he was like the worst person in a really bad time.
What time was this?
1500. So, or 1400s.
Late 1400s.
Yeah. 1431 to 1476 or 77. Yeah. So we're talking about Vlad the Third, Prince of Wallachia.
Wallachia. This place is pretty interesting. It's what ends up being Romania,
Oh, okay.
but at the time it's a very small little principality
Yeah.
that's bordered by what's the sea right next to it? Is it the Black Sea?
Black Sea.
Black Sea to its east. And then it has Hungary to its west. And then kind of to its northeast was the Holy Roman Empire. And then right below it is the Ottoman Empire,
Yeah.
which is separated by the river Dunabi.
Danube.
Yeah, that was close. Yeah.
Real close.
You know, Vlad is, I think most people probably know, is associated with Dracula, the legend of Dracula, who's from Transylvania. Transylvania is like the principality just north of Wallachia in Romania. So
Now.
yeah, now in current day. So he is from this area, and he ends up owning territory in Transylvania itself. So that's kind of the connection to Dracula.
Yeah, we'll get into the
So he's the inspiration for the character?
we'll get into
Yeah.
that nitty gritty.
Okay.
He's Vlad the Third, as you mentioned. Vlad the Second, his father. If you can kind of guess what's happening here, this tiny little principality is stuck between three major powers, and Hungary is very pro-Christian, very Crusades.
Mm.
The Holy Roman Empire clearly was.
Yeah.
And the Ottoman Empire is Turkish. The strongest, most successful fighters of Islam the world had ever seen. And right before Vlad the Impaler is born, it's pretty heavy Christian at the time.
Yeah.
And the Holy Roman, is it the Eastern Roman Empire?
Yeah, the Holy Roman.
Yeah, they lose to the Ottoman Turks. And this is like where Constantinople is.
Yeah.
This is a huge deal because it totally shifts all of the power in this region to Islam.
Ooh.
And now you have Wallachia kind of stuck in between, has like a buffer zone between two major powers, and it doesn't really want to be either of them.
Yeah, and this is also a big part of Vlad the Second, his life as well, and then again Vlad the Third, Vlad the Impaler, is trying to round up people to other Christians to rally around, like defending against the onslaught of the Turks. Like he's like a front line kind of in that situation, which also, as I was reading this, kind of lends itself to being brutal. Like this guy's life was always kind of being dragged between the two worlds.
Yeah.
So he, as a matter of survival, had to be pretty intense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of duality in his story. And there's a lot of people that kind of defend his actions. And as a matter of fact, in Romania today, his story is told very, very positively. He's a national hero. And all of the killing is terrible, but they kind of wash over that because his father, where we get Dracula, is Dracul is the name given to Vlad II as part of this crusader group called Order of the Dragon, and they fight for Christianity.
That sounds tight.
It's the highest order. Yeah, there's a little confusion because it's clearly comes from Greek originally, but it means dragon and eventually came to be known also as devil. And so there's a lot of people that think that he was Vlad the Devil, son of the devil, but he was actually Vlad the Dragon, and he defended Christianity.
And that was also, it was kind of a business decision at that point too. Like getting into that order, it was kind of a way to move up, It's like, all right, so now it's like getting knighted, kind of like he
lines himself up with Hungary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big political move.
Yeah.
And then Constantinople falls. And now he's like, oh, might have been the wrong, because now he has to fight. He's like the last state between the Turks and Europe.
Yeah.
And so what he does is, even though he is Vlad II Dracul, Order of the Dragon leader, defender of the Christian faith, he's super worried about how powerful the Ottoman Empire is. And he's not wrong in assuming that. They are very, very big and powerful. And so he makes a deal with them and says, like, look, I'll pay you guys tribute if you just leave us alone. Like, we won't have to fight. We won't have to go to war. And I'll give you my 2 sons as collateral.
Collateral, yeah.
Yeah. So he sends Vlad III, ends up being Vlad the Impaler, and his son...
Mercia, or Mercia. I don't know how to say it. Mercea.
Oh, that's his older brother.
But those two get sent to the Turks.
And Raoub, is it Raoub? Raoub. The handsome.
Yeah.
It was his younger brother.
The younger brother, yeah. That
Handsome.
was the guy's name.
Radu the handsome. Vlad the Third and Radu the handsome.
Nice.
Now, this is some serious duality that happens here, because they go, and for several years, they're technically prisoners of the Turkish leader, whatever. I don't know what his title is.
It's the emperor of the Byzantine Empire. So it's Constantine Paleologus. Who's the emperor of the Byzantine? Man,
really nailing these names, guys.
Names are
There's
tough.
a lot of really tough names.
A lot of really tough names. Radu the Handsome is pretty easy though. That's
Radu. Yeah.
That's a good one.
So they spend something like 7 or 8 years with the leader of the Ottoman Empire in his personal custody. Go
like
wherever
in the court,
he goes. In the court, they're technically slaves.
They're the quote unquote favored prisoners.
Yeah, but they learn with his children the arts of war, the arts of Islam, art, everything.
They're just like educated with like private tutors the same way as the emperor's kids are.
Okay. Now Radu the Handsome is all about it, and he just wants to be like a everybody easygoing prince. Just like, I want to rule land and just whatever, be rich.
Handsome.
Yeah, just be rich, be handsome, be sweet, whatever. I don't care. And he totally takes Islam and is like, that's great. But Vlad is very, very proud of the Dracul heritage, which is why he calls himself Vlad Dracula, which is son of the dragon.
Oh.
So he's super proud of his dad, even though his dad is a dick. So while they're there hanging out, Vlad is very disobedient and gets beat all the time for not doing your homework or whatever it is that he was supposed to be doing in court, not dancing, entertaining, being calm, whatever, talking back, all this stuff. He just gets whipped all the time. And he doesn't care. He's just constantly disobedient because he's a freakish badass who has no feelings. And his dad starts war with the Turks, with his children there as collateral.
Oh,
He sends letters to the towns of Transylvania saying, how dare that you can't doubt my conviction. I sacrificed my own children for the cause of Christianity. Right? So that's a big deal. Well, he doesn't live very long.
Yeah.
And a little bit of history here. What happens in this principality is that it is a hereditary state, but the leaders are chosen by a thing called the boyar, which are
the boyars, like
they're like these noble.
Yeah, it's like the nobility.
Yeah, the rich families. The heredity line split several generations back between two different houses, and it constantly shifts between the two. And so Vlad II dies, and the other house takes over, but not for very long. There's a lot of political shifting between Hungary and the Ottoman Empire at this time too, trying to determine who's going to rule this area in favor of whom. So Hungary gets their pick, and the Ottoman Empire decides to have him killed and to put Vlad there instead as the next in line of, and he's been in the Ottoman court and will be an Islamic state. And Vlad is pretty sneaky and is like, absolutely. So they send him over there. And very quickly, that is absolutely not the right decision at all.
Whoops.
So he goes back to Wallachia, and the Hungarian king Ladislaus kind of sends him to take over, eliminate the Turkish-friendly Vladislav II, who was like ruling that area. So he was trained by the Turks, then kind of escapes, I guess. Like it's not. He gets sent back.
His dad dies, and he gets sent back to become the ruler. But within just a few months, the other side sends assassins after him and their family to take over. And so he then escapes. And he escapes in a really clever way. They put the horseshoes on backwards on his horse.
Yes. So this is where like the townspeople are going to protect him. He's got a castle that's like just a couple miles from this town. So he's being besieged by or being attacked by these Turks, like this Turkish army. The townspeople put horseshoes on their horses backwards and then ride him out to safety. But it looks like he went up to this castle, but he's really going the other way.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
He sneaks out.
Yeah. So they think, oh, he's in there for sure, but he's really gone.
So that reign was very short. And then that was in 1448. And then in 1456, he was able to return to the throne for the reign that he's very famous for.
Okay.
So he established his own capital city and began to build his castle, which there's some kind of debate about. There's a thing called Bram Castle, which is what Dracula from Bram Stoker's Dracula, that's the castle that he lived in. This is not Vlad's castle. This was a castle he would have stayed at, but not his.
Okay.
His castle that he was building was a place called Ponari, which was built at the peak of a very steep mountain ridge.
Yeah, what they did was pretty interesting. They picked this ridge. I think this was actually the castle that they did the horse thing, like escaping backwards.
It might have been.
Later on. So they had this like peak of this mountain, and there's still ruins there today. And they built, it's I guess relatively small. So it's not like a huge like mountain, but it's like in a mountain range, there's this smaller peak. And when they built the castle, they built out, they kind of added to the surface area of the mountaintop and built the castle. So it takes up basically the whole summit. So in order
impossible to get
to it, like there's like the one road up,
right,
and then it's this sheer cliff. So if you're inside, like 50 guys could defend it against 50,000.
Right.
Because there's just no way you could get to it.
The only access is by 1,480 stairs.
And today, that's today.
Wow.
That's like when they built stairs.
Right.
I think
The stairs are made out of concrete, so that
at that point it was probably rocky trails.
Right.
So, I mean, there's no way to siege it. But from that,
Crazy.
he's looking south into the Ottoman Empire and then north up into what is now Romania, like Transylvania.
Right.
Wallachia is like just south of Transylvania. Yeah. Some of the castles are pretty cool though. Yeah.
The way that he had it built, there's a little bit of history too. So when he takes over for his real reign, he holds this feast for the boyars.
Yeah.
And these are all the people behind the scenes, like I mentioned earlier, the noblemen. And it's just a who's who. Everybody shows up, this big feast, and he brings them all in, wines them and dines them, and he says, how many of us princes have you guys seen in your lifetime? And they can't come to an agreement. There's so many that most of them don't even know. And the reason there is because
they have been supplanting people, moving people up,
assassinations.
Out.
Yeah.
So
they don't even know.
Like Vlad is like the latest, and this area is changing hands all the time.
He's constantly expecting to be assassinated himself.
He's got a person tasting everything he drinks, everything he eats. Like he's waiting to
Highly
die.
Paranoid. Yeah.
And he's not.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
So here he has everybody. And he asked them, how many princes have you seen? And it told him two things. One, that they didn't even know how many of them they had gone through and shifted allegiances with.
Right.
And two, that they had absolutely no respect for him his seat of power.
Right.
So he said, that's great.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
That's cool.
And he put almost all of them to death on the stake.
Like 5,000.
Yeah, not all of them. Yeah, not all of them. The rest, just guards. There's nowhere to go. He locked them in a room, and one by one.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Come with me, bub.
But not all of them. He impaled and killed a lot of them. But the ones that he didn't were sent up into this mountain to build his castle.
Yeah, it was slave labor.
Wow. And they worked until they were naked.
They worked their clothes off.
Literally fell off, and then they worked until they died. There was no
getting out of it.
Yeah, you just worked on his castle until you died. And that's what he did. There's this amazing drop-off in the record of historic family in Wallachia at this time, because it's like,
no one left.
he killed everyone. And this served a double purpose too, because he was able to move all the middle class essentially up into nobility. Handpicked, and they all owed their wealth and life to him.
So this is the first time in, probably 100 years in this area that you have any sort of solidified power, because, he's handpicked everyone that's supporting him, basically. He's not relying on, we're all Wallachians, come on.
It's a very impressive method of obedience and
leadership
loyalty.
skills.
Yeah.
We should also mention, this is like this mass impaling. When we're talking about impaling, what we're talking about is a sharpened tree, like a huge stake. There's two options. One is it's been sharpened at one point.
This is the good way.
Yeah, this is the good way.
Mm-hmm.
So the sharpened point gets put into your navel.
Oh gosh.
Like you're picked up, it's in your navel, and then it gets skewered through your heart, and you're dead. Pretty
quickly.
Quick.
Yeah.
If all goes even.
So kind of at an angle.
Yeah, you're kind of like a kidney bean on a stick here,
This is I want to kill you pretty fast, but I want everyone to see that I did it.
This is I've got places to be, people to kill.
And this is
you're one of them.
Yeah, this is what Vlad did to the boyar.
Yeah.
But that's not what he ended up doing.
No, there's another fun way to impale people that takes a little bit more time.
More fun way.
First things first, you don't sharpen the stake.
Well, you sharpen one end, the one that goes into the ground, to get it into the ground.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You got to anchor it.
The other end, you leave a little dull.
And you oil it.
You grease that up.
Oh, shit.
And then what happens?
Put it in your butthole.
You guessed it.
Yeah. But how would you go about putting an enormous stick up somebody's butt? Would you do it? Would you hold them down and force them through? What you do is you take horses and you attach them to each leg, and then you slowly walk them and pull him through the stake.
So
man.
What ends up happening is you've got a tree up your ass.
All the way.
All the way in your ass.
they stand you up, and then they let gravity work this greased tree through your internal organs, and it'll
come out your mouth.
Comes out your mouth.
No.
And you die from being left alone to the elements. You die from starvation or from dehydration. You don't die from the stake. It takes days to die.
Yeah. So on the one hand, you have it's going into your navel, and then like your guts are slowly just oozing out. You're dying. The other one is going up your ass, and maybe some of your guts are going to run out down out of your ass.
I would imagine.
When we say Vlad the Impaler, that's the Impaler part.
Yeah.
It's not like we chopped his head off and put his body on a stake to warn everyone.
Right.
There was a little bit of that.
A little bit of that, for sure.
You got some variants.
Yeah. You got to mix it up.
What he liked was to be able to talk to the people while they were up on the stake.
I don't even
let them know.
Understand how that's possible.
It's hard to fathom. But then again, he did it to 80,000 people. He had that down to a science.
Yeah.
So we're gonna skip quite a bit of real nitty-gritty detail. It's actually really quite interesting. But let's just put it this way to sum it up. The Ottoman Empire is not happy with him.
They're having a hard time accepting his reign.
And his brother, the Handsome, is down there with him.
Radu.
Yeah. Still being like...
Still being good looking.
Why are you being such a dick, bro? But, so they send their meanest barbarian warlord up to go attack him. And Vlad knows that this is going to happen because he's very smart. And what he does is he just marches a bunch of people down by the river so that they can't cross it. But he does not have the army to fight against one of the biggest superpowers in the world at the time. They send 3 times as many troops as he has in his whole army.
Before they do that, there's something we should mention. They sent envoys to talk to him.
Yeah.
So these envoys show up to basically say, hey, you need to pay like a tax, and like you got to show some deference and fealty to the Sultan. So they're calling him out, saying, you come on, who's really in charge, just pay up.
Come on.
You're cool. And he's not only not happy about paying, he's not happy that they didn't remove their turbans, which is their custom to remove hats to show greeting.
Yeah.
So he's so offended, he decides that since they won't remove their hats for me, they'll never remove their hats for anyone. And he has their turbans nailed to their heads.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's the message he sends back, basically.
Now, I saw an account that said that was how he killed them, but that isn't true because he told them, Go back and tell the Sultan what you've seen here.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't do it to all of them and just said, like, hey, Lucky.
Go back.
Head south.
Yeah. Now, another thing to keep in mind is while this is happening, all kinds of what we look back on now and see as extreme brutality, he was still a prince. He still had people coming to greet and meet with him and foreign diplomats and all kinds of traders and merchants and all sorts of stuff. So he wasn't just killing everybody. He was just doing that.
He was running a country.
While he was running the country.
That's something, too, that at this point in history, this is certainly like intense and extreme, but not that crazy. Like we still fight wars today. It's not, it's not ridiculous. It's just that they didn't have machine guns.
Yeah. He was cleansing his nation that was not at all loyal.
Yeah.
This was an area of it just wasn't.
It was changing hands all the time. It was turmoil. It
wasn't a disciplined place, and he was a very disciplined man.
Yeah.
So when he showed up, it's I'm not in any way defending what he did, but it is at the time, and what his ultimate aim was if you committed any crime, he would put you on a stake. So the story here is he just had some very weird principles. Mm-hmm. So he put like a priceless golden chalice in the middle of his town square.
Yeah.
And people drank from it all the time, the townspeople, but no one ever stole it. because they knew
Yeah.
that if it went missing, he would kill everybody. And so it was kind of that social experiment of if I try to get away with something,
Logan's Run.
I don't know, but like everybody suffers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody tries
Hogan's
to,
Run?
yeah, I don't know.
Hogan's Run.
And he had this mistress that he was very fond of, and she was apparently very fond of him. And he was really mad one night, and she says to him, "Don't be mad. I'm with your child. You should be very happy." And he disembowels her.
Ooh.
But he doesn't do that because she's pregnant with his bastard. He does it because she lied to him. Because she wasn't really pregnant. She was just trying to cheer him up. So because she lied.
Yeah.
And this is all public too. This isn't like he just had his soldiers come in and whatever. No, everything was public. Adulterous women in his country were skinned alive and then put on a stake in the town square next to their skin as a sign to all wives to never cheat on their husbands.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's nuts.
That is so intense.
It's so intense, dude.
So as you can imagine, there's just
Why have we never seen that movie? Because that's more intense than any Dracula story I've ever heard.
Well, yeah, I think that this is like
truth is stranger than fiction.
so. This is like the most intense person living in a really intense time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to think that it's No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
That's the guy's name, the antagonist. He has a funny name. Anyway, that he like kills, but on principle.
Shigeru.
Yeah, he kills, but on principle, and he's also like, hyper violent.
Yeah.
But it's all with method.
He has his own morality, his own ethical.
If you were to
sense.
put him back in the Middle Ages and in charge,
It's Vlad the Impaler.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's like he's not just killing for fun,
Same haircut.
although he ends up finding it fun. He's
good at his job and he enjoys doing it.
Nobody
It's
will.
efficient.
Nobody steals in my country. There's a rule.
There's a good
against it.
reason.
Yeah, and if you steal, I'll kill you, but I'll kill you very slowly in front of everyone. There's a forest of this.
Yeah.
You know this story?
Yeah.
So he's upset the Turks, and they send their biggest and baddest with a huge army.
Yeah, they send this general, Mehmet. What is it? Mehmet something. But yeah, they send like 60,000 troops and then like 30,000 irregulars, like militia.
It's 3-1 against his whole country, and they cross the river.
Mehmet Pasha.
And Vlad does some things like that are pretty asshole-ish at the time. Like he doesn't fight head to head like most battles were done. He would attack them in the night at their camp, and he also spoke perfect Turkish. So he would often sneak into their camps speaking Turkish and then ambush them.
Oh,
so he killed something like 15,000 of them this way.
Even more, I think over 20,000.
Yeah, over 20,000. Yeah, just sneak attacking them while they were marching. And impaled so many people on stakes to make a forest. An impassable forest of still living people on stakes that disgusted this barbaric warlord so much that with an enormous army, he turned around.
He just went, nope.
No, I can't do this.
I don't think
this.
so.
This is a dude who's like beheaded people, ordered their execution. I mean, he's a warrior, warlord, super intense, and was like, yeah, I don't want to see that.
No.
No, thank you.
A forest of the impaled.
I'm going home.
There's woodcuts of it.
Is this from the night attack? Is that like a whole ambush at night, basically? Like they try to kill.
They couldn't take them one-on-one. They knew that.
Yeah, so they try to like run it at night and attack, and basically to assassinate the leaders of the Turkish army, and then just get out of there and go from there. They don't assassinate them, but it pisses this guy off, and they come across like 20,000 Turks that have been turned into human popsicles, just
moaning. It's so eerie.
Dude, my
it's so
stomach
crazy.
Yeah, it's gross.
Now, Vlad was suicidal and crazy, but very smart. And he knew that what he was doing was impossible. like his defenses were really, really well constructed, but not meant to last.
Yeah.
Like one of his castles, he built with a series of spiked fences and then a moat and then another spike fence and then a moat and then another spike, so that you would just shoot the army.
I think it was his dad's first castle. Then when he took over, he
fortified
kept building it. Yeah.
And so that way, if anybody attacked him, they would lose all their men just reaching the castle.
Yeah.
Because you would just be shot with arrows while you're going after obstacle after obstacle. They're very slow and make you easy targets.
Right.
So he was really wise, but at the same time, that was not a place to be if you couldn't get out.
Yeah, if it's like a 3-year siege, you're dead.
Yeah, 3 months, you're fine. Yeah, but if it's against a neighboring country that is a superpower.
Well supplied, and yeah.
Yeah. So he knew that all he was doing was stinging a bear.
Okay.
Even his stronghold up on the ridge is the same kind of situation. It's very, very safe against individual attacks, but you can only be up there for
it's like impossible to get into,
time.
but it's also impossible to get out of.
Yeah. That must have been when the backward horseshoe.
The backward horseshoe.
Yeah, because the Turks get him. They isolate him in that castle. And his first wife
is afraid of
Turkish torture. She's so worried that she's going to get captured and not just killed, but tortured by the Turks, that she jumps out of a window and falls like 1,200 feet to her death.
Into a river. And it's still known as like the Princess's River.
Mm-hmm.
Something.
Yeah.
To this day.
So he escapes. She commits suicide. His brother's put in charge.
Yeah, Radu.
Yeah.
So
Radu the handsome.
He's basically sent to kill his brother.
Yeah.
So he's given these battalions sent up there. He ends up like kind of promising all the boyars that have survived, or who their descendants have now come of age or whatever. He promises all of them like, hey, everything's forgiven. Just come back over to our side. Turn him over. So like he ends up kind of getting betrayed there. So his own brother is coming up to kill him. Dude, it's like the most intense. Like, this is all like in 6 years that this is.
Yeah. This isn't like decades of.
This is not like
a Thrones.
50-year reign. This is like.
So yeah, Radu takes over.
Yeah.
Which is obviously really good for the Ottoman Empire, not very good for Hungary.
Not so good.
No. But Hungary takes him prisoner because he's
a bargaining chip, really.
Yeah, and he's committed war crimes and crimes against his people and whatever. But this is kind of a funny thing because the guy who is running Hungary at the time has Vlad imprisoned for, we don't really know how long. The records are all different. Mm-hmm. So some say 15 years, which is way too long.
Yeah, I don't think it was 15.
He gets out and then marries the ruler of Hungary's cousin and then has a daughter with her before a lot of the records say that he got out. That is of like 6 or 7 years old, which doesn't make any sense. Like all of that stuff. And we'll get into that too, because like the information that we have is very, very bizarre. Because none of this, it shouldn't have happened in even that long of a time. So the thing that I was reading was that there's no way he could have been a prisoner and also married off to part of the royal family at the same time.
Yeah.
And yet the records are all very different because of the amount of time they've been married, how old their first child was, and how long he was technically in jail. But he gets out and he takes the throne back over. Yeah.
This was in 1476. He declares he's back on. So he's born in 1431. So 1476, he's 45 years old. And within like 2 months, I think he's dead. And there's a lot of controversy about how he died.
Nobody knows where he's buried. Mm-hmm. Nobody. He was beheaded.
And his head sent back to Constantinople, packed in honey.
Yeah, to preserve it.
Whoa.
Yeah. Which I thought, that's how you get ants,
that is how you get ants.
That's how you get ants.
Yeah. So that way they would know that for sure the Impaler king was dead.
Wow.
Yeah. There is this this old monastery that's like on an island that it's kind of believed that that's where his body's buried. That's where like a lot of people that think he's pretty badass go as like a pilgrimage, but the tomb that he's said to have been buried in has been like dug up. There's no body in it.
Yeah, so. Forensics have showed no evidence of anything. Yeah.
So we don't know.
It kind of comes to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
And sort of a mysterious end.
Not entirely surprising.
No.
So how is it that his story inspires the myth of Dracula?
In a pretty bloody reign, and just his name Dracula comes down.
Now, Bram Stoker's son has come out and said that it has less to do with the actual Vlad and more to do with a poor reading of Romanian history and some bad crab. He had night tremors one night from some bad seafood and came up with this horror story. So I mentioned earlier the castle. So Bran Castle is this really beautiful castle in the area in Romania where it's the actual castle that Dracula, the fictional character, lives.
Yeah.
There's a book of Romanian history that Bram read that mentions Vlad only briefly. And I read the part too. It's just very briefly. There's no history at all.
Yeah.
It's just in a lineage of other rulers. And it's him and his father with Dracul and then Vlad Dracula. And it explains Order of the Dragon. And so that got misinterpreted to devil at that point. And so Bram saw Dracula as son of the devil. And it's been claimed that had he never read that book, he wouldn't have been called Dracula. He would have been called something as stupid as Lucifer.
Right.
It was just devil.
Right.
That's all. So it's easy to see some of the similarities as far as.
So it's a pretty loose relationship.
Yeah. The closest similarity is location, but Bram stole that from. Dracula is in a lot of ways a satire of a style of novel that was very popular about 30 or 40 years before it was written.
Mm-hmm.
These horror stories of supernatural beings that are written from the standpoint of each chapter being letters written back and forth between people, these correspondence. And it's a really cool way to do a book.
It's the young guy writing back to his fiance.
Yeah. And Dracula is a great book. But the closest thing, other than location, that it has to do with Vlad is that in their lifetimes, they fought against the Turks. And it is in the same area of Transylvania, which he had stolen from other types of the same literature that he was. It's not necessarily satire. It's more like an homage to a style that had kind of fallen out of popularity. So there's all kinds of people that debate this, whether or not Vlad really is Dracula or what. And all the things that I've found have been pretty strongly in favor of the fact that, there is some similarities, but it's just bad history.
It makes sense. It makes sense to me that it's a cool name and misreading it to mean something else. Like, let's go with that. It's unique. And then I also, as I was reading all this history stuff, I was just kind of, again, thinking, he's a psycho, but, you could find people as bad or worse within within this guy's life.
Sure.
And without any reason.
Yeah.
At least he had reason. If it was a very, awful way to get your results, at least he had reason.
Yeah. So.
And then the other thing, too, is you have to consider your sources.
Yeah.
What we know about him is there's a lot of information from 3 places, and those 3 places are not necessarily to be trusted. There's very little information or archaeological evidence otherwise. So what we have is, of course, Romanian oral tradition.
He's like a folk hero, patriot in Romania.
But they're verbal, passed down for 500 years. And of course, constant retelling changes the story. But even today, he is regarded as this was a time of independence for that area. And at a time when it was very difficult to be independent, you were surrounded by superpowers. And Vlad is seen as someone who showed up and said, fuck all of you. Don't come in here. And he did it in a really terrible way, but they see him as this hero. The other thing is there's Russian pamphlets. So at the time, princes of Moscow were just beginning to build the basis of what would become the autocracy of the Tsars. And just like Vlad, they were having considerable problems with the disloyal and often troublesome boyars in Russia. So Vlad was thus presented as a cruel but just prince whose actions were intended to benefit the greater good of his people. So it was the information that we have very well could just be propaganda used as scare tactics against a troublesome nobility in a different land, which makes sense. All this stuff is exaggerated. I mean, it's based in some kind of truth, but it's exaggerated to scare locals in another area.
Yeah.
And very similar to that, we have the German pamphlets.
And some of these are written while he's still alive. There's like stories of him already getting over into the German areas. So it's kind of like this cautionary tale that's like the boogeyman, but living.
Right. So like a lot of the woodcuts, the one of the forest of the impaled.
It's crazy.
Classic ones.
It's like him eating dinner.
Yeah.
While he's like what the fuck?
Right in front of a person who's being hacked in front of a field of impaled people. And one of the videos that I watched had a professor explaining like, well, he impaled like 10,000 people in a very short period. Of course, he had to stop to eat, and he's not going to go home. Like he's just going to, of course,
he's
like
hungry,
it makes sense. It's not like he did that as dinner entertainment. He was out in the field with them.
Yeah.
A lot of those come from these German pamphlets, which the Germans were in this area making big profits as merchants. A lot of times screwing a lot of the locals over.
This is like where Transylvania kind of comes in. Dude, they were huge in Transylvania.
And they were often made an example of and were very much victims of his cruelty, that more than any of his locals, it was a lot of these foreigners. And so, of course, they would paint this picture of this inhuman monster.
Yeah.
It's questionable where the line is drawn between propaganda and reality, because all of it is certainly based in truth. We have accounts from the empires that surrounded him explaining what a crazy monster he was in a time of terrible, terrible monsters. And at the same time, what we have as direct sources have to be taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because they all had agendas of their own.
Here's a picture of that woodcut for Dan.
Oh, wow. Yeesh.
I suppose to sum it up here, we can just go through a list of some of his atrocities.
Yeah.
And then a couple of the anecdotes that are found through all of those sources. And let you guys be the judge. Was he an inhuman monster, or was he just a just prince looking for justice?
Or something in between.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah.
We're Fox News.
Looking for obedience from a...
No spin zone.
So let's start with the impalement method. We discussed it earlier, but...
that is pretty...
It's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Vlad usually had a horse attached to each of the victim's legs, and a sharpened stake was gradually forced into the body. The end of the stake was usually oiled, and care was taken that the stake not be too sharp, else the victim might die too rapidly from shock.
How thick do we think it was?
Like a calf?
Yeah, I'd do that, maybe.
I mean, how does that not... If once it passes through your stomach, how does that not kill you?
Rupture some, maybe. But
maybe it kind of seals around it. Yeah, you're going to die.
I mean, at this point in time, there's no exact science to this. It can't be.
They have a lot of experience,
especially with that diameter going through your body.
They've got time on the job, you know?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Now, the stake was inserted into the body through the buttocks and was often forced through the body until it emerged from the mouth.
Oh, man. I mean, you can't be alive at that point.
However, there were many instances where victims were impaled through other body orifices or through the abdomen or chest, we talked about, Infants were sometimes impaled on the stake, forced through their mother's chests. And the records indicate that victims were sometimes impaled so that they hung upside down on the stake.
Whoa.
Vlad often had the stakes arranged in various geometric patterns. The most common pattern was a ring of concentric circles in the outskirts of a city. That was his target. The height of the spear indicated the rank of the victim. The decaying corpses were often left up for months. It was once reported that an invading Turkish army turned back in fright when it encountered thousands of rotting corpses impaled on the banks of the Danube. In 1461, Muhammad II, this is that badass barbarian we were talking about, a man not noted for his squeamishness, returned to Constantinople after being sickened by the sight of 20,000 impaled Turkish prisoners outside a city. This gruesome sight is remembered as the forest of the impaled.
That is so many.
Thousands were often impaled at a time.
Oh, man.
Some other lists of tortures employed by the cruel prince. Nails in heads, cutting off of limbs, blinding, strangulation, burning, cutting off of noses and ears, mutilation of sexual organs, especially in the case of women, scalping, skinning, exposure to the elements or to wild animals, and burning alive. His victims included women and children, peasants and great lords, ambassadors from foreign powers, and merchants. However, the vast majority of his victims came from the merchants and boyars of Transylvania. So, awful. Now, we talked about the cup that he left out.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other just terrible stories about him. He was very concerned that all his subjects work and contribute to the common welfare. And he once noticed that the poor, vagrants, beggars, and cripples had become very numerous in his land. So he issued an invitation to all the poor and sick in Wallachia to come for a great feast, claiming that no one should go hungry in his land. As the poor and crippled arrived in the city, they were ushered into a great hall where a fabulous feast was prepared for them. They ate and drank late into the night, and Vlad himself made an appearance and asked them, "What else do you desire? Do you want to be without cares, lacking nothing in the world?"
No, I don't.
They responded positively, and Vlad ordered the hall boarded up and set on fire. None escaped the flames. Vlad explained his action to the boyars by claiming that he did this in order that they represent no further burden to other men and that no one will be poor in my realm.
Whoa.
One of my personal favorites, he had a Dutch ambassador who came to dine with the prince and turned his nose up at the smell. And, he's Polish. Is that similar?
No.
They're pretty close.
Not really.
Yeah, whatever. He turned his nose up at the smell, and Vlad asked him what he was doing. He said, "Sorry, but it's really bad."
It stinks in here, man.
Because the thing is, it's not just that there's blood and dead corpses everywhere, but people just shit themselves, and it's awful.
It would stink.
It's everything.
Yeah, and so he says, that's too bad. And so he just puts him on a stake, but higher up. And he says, now he doesn't have to worry about it, up there with the gentle breezes.
Way up high.
Yeah, there's no stench up
Dude,
there.
What a fucking psycho.
Yeah, just let him die. There's this mistress. We talked about that. Killed a man's wife because the man's shirt wasn't long enough because she was the seamstress. Yeah.
Jeez.
Gave him a new wife, though.
Oh, you can have a new wife.
But said to her,
"Hey, lesson learned,
you know
right?"
what happened to the last one?
And then a merchant from a foreign land was visiting. And aware of the reputation of his land for honesty, he left a treasure-laden cart unguarded in the street overnight. And upon returning, he was shocked to find his 160 golden ducats missing. The merchant complained to the prince, and Vlad assured him that his money would be returned. So Vlad issued a proclamation to the city: "Find the thief and return the money, or the city will be destroyed." During the night, he ordered that 160 ducats plus one extra be taken from his own treasury and placed in the merchant's cart. On returning to the cart the next morning and counting his money, the merchant discovered the extra golden parcel. And the merchant returned to Vlad and reported that his money had indeed been returned, plus an extra ducat. Meanwhile, the thief had been captured and turned over to the prince's guards, along with the stolen money. And Vlad ordered the thief impaled and informed the merchant that if he had not reported the extra ducat, he would have been impaled alongside the thief. That one's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll leave it with that. That was
That's not bad.
Yeah, pretty positive.
Sure. As positive as it gets, it's gonna get.
Right.
That's about it.
Yeah, So,
all right.
Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad the Impaler.
I had a lot of fun.
It's a very, again, crazy time to be a person.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like that,
Hey.
where do you go? What do you do?
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, sweet dreams.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. Really puts Tansler to shame. He was just a freak.
I heard.
Yeah, he was just a little
Tansler
weird.
was just, yeah.
I heard someone
just in
talking
love.
about Tansler. I think talking about Tansler, or
Oh.
they didn't mention Tansler by name. They were talking about some dude who had dug up a corpse and then inserted a fake vagina.
Heard about it on this awesome podcast.
It's
Who
probably
else?
happened before.
You think this happened before?
Sure. And since.
Good gravy. That is.
Oh, dear.
I mean, I hope not, but
Boy, howdy.
yeah.
That's terrible.
If it's happened once, it's
Well.
happened a few times.
Yes. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope you learned something.
We always hope that you do.
I know I sure did.
I learn stuff every time.
Yeah.
And we'll learn
Some of it's
stuff.
disgusting.
Yeah, some of it's gross. We'll learn some more stuff next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys enjoy the rest of your time. You know,
As long as it
little
may
you
be.
have left.
Enjoy your time. Oh, jeez.